Hey, everybody. Welcome to Moment of Clarity. Thanks for joining me. Please click the thumbs up and subscribe and the this and the that's. And thanks a lot. Let's jump into the four Colombian mercenaries that we now know trained in America in order to have the skills to assassinate Haiti's president, Jovenel Moïse. This is, when it was revealed that Moïse was assassinated, many people said, and it was a whole team of people that went in and assassinated him, right? Many people said, well, I bet the U.S. didn't have anything to do with this. I bet the U.S. wasn't involved. And even though Moïse was kind of a puppet president for the U.S., but still, the truth is, whenever this shit goes down, there's usually some U.S. involvement in one way or another. It doesn't necessarily mean that the United States government wanted to take out Moïse, but as we have now just learned, yes, there was a connection to the United States. Four of the Colombian mercenaries who were tied to the Moïse assassination, meaning they were there, they were part of it, were trained at Fort Benning in the United States. And this, they say the Pentagon has confirmed four of the Colombian mercenaries accused of assassinating Haitian President Jovenel Moïse once received U.S. military training at Fort Benning in Georgia while they were members of the Colombian Armed Forces, formerly known, which is like, if you're not really into studying the American Empire and how fucked up we are, you might be like, why are the Colombian Armed Forces training in the United States? Formerly known as the School of the Americas, the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation. They renamed it that. So it was formerly known as the School of the Americas. But the problem is people started to realize the School of the Americas meant that it was awful, fucking horrible killers that were being trained there. If they like, the name became associated with horrible killers. And so they were like, well, let's change it to something and we'll just throw in all of the words that we know. And then people will have trouble, harming the brand. They'll have trouble remembering what it's called, trouble talking about it. And so let's just throw it, we'll call it the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation at Fort Benning, and table and chairs and lamp. And those are the things I can see around me. Sky, did I say chair? Put that in the name. Why not? That'll throw people off. So yes, that's what it's now known as. It's at Fort Benning. It's been used for decades to train Latin American soldiers in combat, counterinsurgency, and counter-narcotics. Critics have long described the training center as the School of the Assassins. Every time that you hear that this shit has gone down, there is some connection to the School of the Americas. Just about every goddamn time. There is some connection to the School of the Americas, where we train fucking horrible people to become assassins, to become killers, to become fucking fascist troops in countries where we usually have created a coup there, or have put in a puppet government, or have, whatever, created some kind of hardship, created economic war there. And then we send in these killers and assassins and, all around twat bags in to wreak havoc in these countries. And this is where we train them. And so sure enough, some of the ones connected to the assassination of Moïse were trained at this fucking assassin school right here in the United States of America. This doesn't come as a surprise to a lot of people. Anytime shit goes down, you go, well, what role did the United States play? And, usually we either play a role in creating it, or we play a role in continuing it, making it worse. There have definitely been some like organic coups that have happened in countries, but if that happens without the United States being involved, then we jump in immediately as it starts happening. And we decide which side we want, and we go in and try and create havoc. I love that Gretchen's asking if they graduated from the school, because, you might want to send them a happy graduation card. You might want to send them a way to go, and a little a little one of those little inspirational posters that say, "You did it," right? With a little like chipmunk jumping up and down. Yeah, I'm sure it was a hell of a graduation ceremony and just a whole festival, right? So anyway, that is the breaking news on what's and I've already covered a lot of what's gone on in Haiti, how we laid the groundwork for the destruction that continues in Haiti. We have crushed them economically for years, basically used them like a borderline slave colony in terms of our stealing the resources. We have kidnapped their presidents before. We kidnapped Aristide and flew him to Africa and just dropped him off there and was like, he agreed to do that. He said he didn't want to be president anymore. And he's on the phone going, "No, I didn't. I was kidnapped. It's a coup by the U.S." That was 2004. So we have done so much, wreaked so much havoc in Haiti. And here now we have the proof, the evidence that yet again, the U.S. was somehow involved in this latest assassination in Haiti. Obviously, the United States should get the fuck out of these countries. It doesn't matter whether you like one president or this. But that country is socialist, when it comes to Cuba and Venezuela. But I don't like but Maduro said something bad about the United States. It doesn't fucking matter. The United States should not be involved in any of these countries. The United States should be its own nation and stop playing God with all these other countries and not caring how many people get killed along the way. It doesn't matter to the United States how many people die in our efforts to overthrow these countries or these presidents. Oftentimes, like in the case with Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, we're just trying to create havoc. We just want to create enough havoc that we can steal resources, stop them from having strength, stop them from being any kind of risk to us or Israel. And we shouldn't be involved in any of these countries. So that's story number one, but I have a few more I'd like to get into. So let's do that. By the way, if you want to keep up with the news, I've just created a new website to give you all the important news every day. You can just go to radindiemedia.com, RADINDIE media.com. Just check it out and bookmark it, make it something you check out every day. It's a good way to find out about important stories that are going on from media that's not your corporate media, it's not your mainstream garbage media, and it's not going to flood you with information either. It's like, you get whatever 12 to probably somewhere between 12 and 20 articles, episodes, things like that on the website, featured on the website each day. But you're not going to get like thousands or anything. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. So you probably or maybe heard about the Pegasus spyware, Israeli-created spyware that it turns out has been used around the globe, often to spy on journalists or anybody that various governments didn't like, various people that were dissenting, that were dissidents in those countries, and it's become a bit of a scandal. Even mainstream's covering it to some degree. That'll be covered more on Redacted Tonight and Redacted Tonight VIP. But here is WikiLeaks tweeted this. This is from the Mexican president, Andre Manuel Lopez Obrador, AMLO, for all of his best buddies, which we clearly are. All of his besties call him AMLO. So here's him speaking just, I think, yesterday, and WikiLeaks tweeted this out. Oh, I should probably... Oops. Shit. goddamn fucking shit. Shut fuck. Okay, here it is. As Pegasus revelations, this is what WikiLeaks tweeted. As Pegasus revelations reverberate around the world, the president of Mexico, Lopez Obrador, calls for WikiLeaks founder and publisher Julian Assange, who first exposed widespread global surveillance operations, to be freed. And I'm going to play the video.
Es importante la investigación. Por eso es importante la investigación que se hizo a nivel mundial, y también por eso fue importante lo de WikiLeaks en su momento, que Assange debe de ser liberado porque está injustamente en la cárcel, tratado con saña por dar a conocer algo parecido, que yo creo que hasta de más alcance, porque nadie debe ser espiado.
So there it is. Lopez Obrador saying that Julian Assange should be freed. It's so weird seeing a president of a country speak like common sense, like actual moral or just statements. I'm not saying I don't live in Mexico. I don't know everything about AMLO, so I'm not saying that he's never done anything wrong. But I'm just saying in this moment, it like you see something like that, and you're like, as an American, you're like, that's fucking crazy. That's crazy that a president could say something like, "Oh, I don't know, a publisher shouldn't be imprisoned and tortured for 9 years." Like, that's so crazy. It's so bizarre for someone in the United States. And, it goes for many other countries too, like Brazil, Australia, Britain. You're just seeing a president be like, hey, yeah, Assange should be free. And what he told the people, what he revealed at WikiLeaks was incredibly important. And you're just like, that is so fucking bizarre. Like, honestly, like it's as bizarre to see that as it'd be like if he just like took off his shirt and had like nipple tassels and started waving them around and dancing to like Taylor Swift. Like, because you're just like, what the fuck? I didn't know presidents were allowed to say moral things. I didn't know they were allowed to actually defend a journalist in a real way. I didn't know that like that could happen. So you see a clip like this and you're like, this is fucking bizarre. But honestly, like his election in general is what you have when the system is not as rigged. I'm not saying there's never any rigging that goes on in Mexico, but I'm saying if someone as massively popular as Bernie Sanders was when he was kind of at his height, in most countries, that guy would win the election. But the United States has our system more on lock, with the super delegates and everything else. And the fact that the person who spends the most money wins 80% of the time, et cetera. So like it's more impossible for someone who's actually left wing, who actually stands for left wing ideas, who actually has the people behind him in many ways. And for like in most countries, they don't have their systems. If they have a republic, a democratic republic or something, they don't have their systems as locked down. And so someone can get enough following, Evo Morales, et cetera, can get enough following that they actually win these things. Lula in Brazil. Whereas in the United States, they're like, oh, that's cute that you think that having 60% of the country behind you is going to win the election. No, we have this worked out now. Yeah, we have something called super delegates. Don't worry about how they work. But they are going to make sure you don't win. Yeah, it's cool. Don't even bother yourself with it. But yeah, they're going to decide that you don't win. It is just amazing to see a world leader speak like that. Isn't it? So bizarre. But of course he's right. And of course, the fact that this Pegasus thing comes out, yet again, we see that these governments, and I looked at the New York Times article on the Pegasus thing, and they were saying like, oh, people are upset that that Israel has allowed this software to be used for spying on journalists and dissidents. And you're like, they fucking knew. You don't think that's what every country wants to do. Every country wants to stop journalists who reveal the truth, dissidents who are standing up and organizing people. They usually want to stop their labor leaders. Like, of course they're going to use that software for that. Oh, no, they're just going to use it to stop terrorists. Yeah, that's all. Just someone who wants to kill a lot of people. No, they're not. The United States is the largest surveillance system that's ever been created. And Edward Snowden showed us that we are all being watched in myriad ways. And how much have the presidents, Obama, Trump, Biden, done to stop that mass surveillance that was revealed to the American people? Fucking zero. It's not something they're opposed to. They may say they're opposed to it in speeches, but they love that shit. They want to know what every American's doing all the time. They want to suppress all the journalism that is outside of the corporate allowable talking points all the time. And that's what they're doing right now online, which I've talked endlessly about, so I'm not going to dig into it right now. But it's like, of course they're going to use the software for that. So the shock that, oh my God, Pegasus was used to spy on journalists. What? It's like, what the fuck do you think they use this shit for? Classic New York Times. Classic New York Times. So I got another story for you. This is another clip for you. This next clip is 31 years old, but I think you'll see that it's more important now than it was 31 years ago. And by the way, before I get to that, please make sure you hit the thumbs up button. That actually helps. And if you donate on Super Chat, or you donate on Rockfin, or you donate on Venmo at Lee Camp, all those donations go to people who are struggling, people who need help right now. If that's you, you can email commoncensored@protonmail.com. We're not talking about thousands of dollars. We're just talking about a few bucks to help people out. So all of those donations go to those who need assistance right now. If you want to support my work, that's at liberapay.com, liberapay.com/Lee Camp. And lastly, just again, Rad Indie Media. If you go there, I think you'll see it's not a money-making venture. It honestly is just an effort to have people know, like, a place they can go where shit won't be suppressed, where they can learn the real news from awesome outlets, and they can just go there daily, and you don't have to worry about suppression. You don't have to worry about, so many important stories being just crushed because the mainstream media can't possibly tell you about them. So that's the idea. Just a thing you check. Maybe you only check it for a minute. Maybe you spend 20 minutes on it a day. I don't know. It's up to you. It's how you feel like it's most useful for you. But that's at radindiemedia.com. And obviously the biggest thing you can do to help that grow and help us be able to keep it going is just let people know about it. Just tell people that you like it and that it's a good place to find good, awesome media. But let's get into the last story here. Last thing. So this is coming from Peter Joseph, a friend of mine, created the Zeitgeist movement. Peter's pretty awesome. Does amazing work. And he's also doing work that, like, even most of your, or maybe nearly all of your left-wing, even media, alternative media, independent media, they don't want to dig down into the heart of our economics and how our economics is set up to destroy this planet, to destroy our abilities, how inefficient it is, how it's using all the resources, even though the solutions to creating a sustainable planet are already out there. Like, that's the stuff Peter Joseph does. That's so incredible. So definitely check out his stuff. But this is a clip he shared of Carl Sagan, the great Carl Sagan. Most of you know him. Scientist, but world-renowned scientist, but also kind of a philosopher and just did wonderful things, died too young. But so this is, I'm trying to remember if I shared the audio on the clip. Let me do this again. Make sure I share the audio. Yeah, and let me just set this up that obviously it goes without saying. It goes without saying that the climate crisis is getting horrific, as we all knew it would. Much of America's on fire right now. There's massive floods in China. There's just heat waves all over the place. It's causing just so many ripple effects just down through the economies, through people's lives. You already have climate refugees around the globe. It's only going to get worse. And the truth is the solutions are out there. We know some of the solutions. And the technology is getting better and better. And we all have to stop using fossil fuels. We need to stop capitalism, because guess what? You cannot have infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. Huh? Just sit with that. I love that. I love that for all the endless argument that does happen about capitalism, not in mainstream media airwaves. They won't even say the word capitalism, but in places like this, or online and stuff like that, or amongst friends, all the debates that are had about capitalism, about whether it's so good, whether it's awful, whether it's evil, whether it's the only way, etc. Really, it all comes down to one sentence. You can make it one sentence. Capitalism is the idea of infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. End of sentence. If you want to, you can add a little extra sentence where you go, that's impossible. If you feel you need that. If that's something you feel your friend or whoever you're talking to needs, because if they're a true fucking idiot. But really, you just need the first sentence. Infinite growth, planet with finite resources. That's impossible. The whole thing is set up with an impossible premise. And I've never had anyone tell me that is possible. I've never had anyone, even defenders of capitalism, don't run around going, no, we can grow forever. And it doesn't matter that there's limited resources. I've never heard anyone say that. So, and if they do, they're, again, fucking idiots. So really it comes down to one sentence. That's the whole argument. That's the whole debate. Getting on a sidetrack here. So, yeah. Back to climate change. We're seeing the results. We're seeing that this is already a crisis. I mean, so many places. Tell me, every one of you watching right now, tell me that you haven't either been in a climate change related catastrophe, disaster, fucked upness, even if it's just a drought where like people were like, oh shit, we don't have water, start conserving water. Really what they should be saying is don't eat meat, because that's the number one fresh water user. But if they're saying shower with a friend, and if you don't have a friend, just grab a guy off the street and shower with him. He probably needs it. Even if it's just a drought, but maybe even bigger stuff. Maybe you were at a flood. Maybe you fled a flood. Maybe you which fled a flood is a good turn of phrase. Maybe you had to leave an area because of a hurricane was much bigger than normal. I wasn't actually in it when it hit, but Superstorm Sandy in New York City, I was living there then. Largest storm that they'd like fucking ever seen, flooded New York. And I spent 2 weeks helping out with Occupy Sandy and bringing food to desperate people that literally were trapped in high-rise like projects, 14, 20-story high-rise projects, but they're elderly. And so they can't, and the elevators don't work and they can't get down the stairs. So literally they're just living on that 14th floor and we would bring them food. So I'd love to hear if there's a single person in this comment thread, single person watching right now who has never had any connection, or you're connected to someone who got severely impacted, like you have a family member who lost their house or something in a flood or a storm or a fire or what have you, or moved out of an area because the fires were getting closer and closer. So if we're all impacted by this, Why is it not most of what we're talking about? Like mainstream media, yes, they will do stories on climate change, but I've covered before how fairness and accuracy in reporting has shown that they're decreasing coverage of climate change even just this past year. 2020 had like a dozen stories in the mainstream media on climate change, according to fairness and accuracy in reporting. I mean, that's mind-blowing how little they're talking about it, and they never talk about the real solutions. They never talk about the real changes. The closest they'll get is saying the words Green New Deal. They'll never get in to like, let's fucking sit here and decide what really needs to be done. Let's switch to hydroponic farming. Let's switch to different forms of water use, which I did a whole segment on how we actually could all have clean water and we wouldn't end up in water wars, which we're told are going to be happening soon. Anyway, all of that is to say climate change is horrible, but here's Carl Sagan telling us everything 31 years ago.
If you then look at the output of these computer models, which purport to give a sense of how the temperatures change on a regional basis as you go through time, you begin to see some very worrisome things. Yes, there are some places that get cooler and some places that get warmer, but the overall trend is warmer. And by the middle of the 21st century, there's no winner. Every place has gotten warmer. And to give you an idea of how much warmer, I mean, a few degrees centigrade global change doesn't sound like so much. Let me point out that a 1 degree temperature change, in this case decrease following a massive volcanic explosion, is enough to produce widespread suffering and famine worldwide, as happened following the Tambora explosion, volcanic explosion in 1815, and other cases which are still more serious. Several degrees is a very major temperature increase. And some of these predictions prognosticate that the American Midwest will be converted into something approaching scrub desert by the second half of the 21st century, and likewise the Soviet Ukraine and so on. But the American Midwest is the breadbasket of the world. If the grain and cereal foodstuffs from those places are unavailable, we are in serious trouble. In addition, through the volume expansion of seawater, the melting of glacial and polar ice, sea levels rise. And again, there's an uncertainty. Average prediction for the middle of the next century is 1 meter, 3 feet, but it might be as little as 1, and it might be as much as many meters. And then take a look at all the low-lying coastlines all around the world and ask what happens when the sea level rises.
So there you go. The great Carl Sagan saying those words 31 years ago. And how much did people listen? How much have they really done to prepare for this, to deal with this? I mean, it shows us how incompetent the American system is. I mean, and I suppose systems around the world, but America is both uniquely powerful around the world, uniquely rich, and uniquely the cause of climate change. There are many countries that maybe get close to as much as we've done to fill the atmosphere with global warming emissions. But how much have we done? How much have we prepped for this? How much have we? The corporations own the mouthpieces of this nation. They own the media, and they don't want to talk about this. They didn't want to talk about it then. They don't want to talk about it now. So this should be like 70% of everything we're talking about, minimum, maybe more. And the only way to get to that sustainable place is things outside of capitalism. It is large-scale changes in lifestyle that we are capable of, that could happen. I mean, we did it with the pandemic in a different form, right? In the span of a couple of months, we shut down all fucking like most capitalist ventures. We shut down restaurants and theaters and everything else. Everybody switched their lives around. They stopped visiting each other, stopped traveling, started wearing masks everywhere. Like that is a massive change over the span of a few months. But because we are the famous frog in the pot, right? We're slowly being boiled, even though it's not that slow if you look at large scale time. But if you talk about in a lifetime, slowly being boiled. And so therefore we don't deal with it. We don't change. But that's the thing, if they started, okay, our mainstream media and our politicians, obviously, because they are what the mainstream media, who the mainstream media goes to for comment and things like that. If they want to manufacture consent for war, they can do it. Before Obama started talking about Syria, nobody in America thought much about Syria. There was no discussion of Syria. Syria wasn't really a thing that got discussed in American media. Then they started discussing, they started doing the manufacturing of consent for war in Syria, and it took about a year. At first, Obama said he was going to bomb Syria, and there was enough pushback. There was so much pushback against it that he actually pulled back. I don't know if you remember this. He pulled back for about a year because basically what was realized is they hadn't done enough work in the manufacturing consent area to justify bombing Syria. So they pulled back. They spent a year trumping up bullshit about Syria, telling everybody to be worried about it, telling everyone how harmful Syria is, telling everyone Syria is under your bed, it's going to get you. They spent about a year. And then they were ready to bomb, and it was far more accepted by that point. So they can manufacture consent for war. Guess what? They could also manufacture consent for large-scale change to create a sustainable future. That is not impossible. But it does take some of these big outlets and these big organizations. And so the fact that they're doing the opposite, acting like climate change isn't happening, doing fewer reports last year than they did the year before and the year before that, which was already pathetic. I mean, it's fucking amazing. These people are pathetic, spineless sacks of shit. Every single one of them on your mainstream airwaves, on your mainstream media, every single one of them. And I'll throw in there any YouTube creators that don't want to talk about climate change. They're pathetic sacks of shit too. They're either idiots or they're just spineless. Because it doesn't get enough clicks. So everything's just got to be what fucking Ted Cruz said. That's all that they can ever do videos on because climate change doesn't get enough clicks. It's like, fuck you. Are you going to talk about what matters, or are you going to talk about the thing that gets twice as many clicks because it's, someone's tit fell out of their dress? It was probably Trump's. But anyway. There's the great Carl Sagan, knowing exactly what was going to happen, what we were headed towards. And, climate change will continue to be the defining characteristic of our lives. That doesn't mean it's all going to be awful and hell and everything. It could very well push us into a new enlightenment. I mean, we're overdue for an enlightenment, man. We are over fucking due. It is enlightenment number 2 time. Enlightenment 2.0. Turn the goddamn lights on. Let's see some shit. We are overdue for it. So maybe it'll push us into some sort of large-scale enlightenment. We'll realize capitalism is consuming this globe far faster than it can grow back and give us back what we're taking out of it. We could get there. But we got to start listening to the people like Carl Sagan. We got to do that. When dudes like him speak, take notes. Don't just ignore it and go back to all the other bullshit we do. All right, guys, that's the show for today. Please share this for people. Click the thumbs up, click the subscribe, and check out Rad Indie Media. If you hate it, you hate it. But at least give it a try. Give it a try. Set it as a bookmark. Give it a try. A few mornings in a row. See if it's the type of thing you like to get your morning started, get your day started. If you're not into reading news in the morning, then fucking do it in the afternoon. Listen, I'm not going to set the time for you, okay? You got to be responsible for your own schedule, your own thing, man, okay? If you're the type that you wake up and you got to take a good, solid 20-minute dump first, then do that first. you know, or maybe that's a good time to have the phone out and be checking it. Maybe there it is. There's the window. Dump time is news dump time. Because they, you know, on Friday they call it the news dump. All right, anyway, a dumb political joke. But whatever your schedule is, you do your thing. I'm just saying, give it a chance. Give radindymedia.com a chance. And I know it sounds like I'm saying it in a foreign language because people can't really comprehend this, but it's not a money-making venture. There's so far I've just lost a lot of money creating it because it's not a money-making venture. It's a informing you guys venture. There's no ads on it. We're never going to take ads. We're never going to take corporate sponsors. Any funding that went into creating it was just my savings. So you'll see. There's no ads. It's not selling you things. It's not like every third article is fucking about how new kind of underwear is going to stop your ass from stinking. None of that. Not that you couldn't use that. Maybe you could. You know, people have been talking. I think you should. Yeah, people have been saying stuff. I'm not going to say who. But people have been saying something. All right, guys. Thanks a lot, and keep fighting.